Yeah, thank you for hopping in here with me.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is really exciting for me personally.
Yeah, well, where do you want to start? Okay. Well, I guess I we should give context because nobody else is going to know who you are. But
Mhm.
so just I don't know. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What you do. Tell us about free GPT. Yeah, I guess that's where we'll start. And then I have plenty of questions. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, yeah, please. So yeah, my name is Devon Chase. I am the creator and developer of FreeGPT. FreeGPT is the best way to describe FreeGPT is kind of like an API interact like interaction interface almost for OpenAI's ChatGPT API. So that's a little bit complicated, kind of saying that, but basically what it is basically an API interface for their untrained model. So OpenAI normally offers any business or anyone really to pretty much use their API for whatever purpose they want. So you can either do it through their Playground application, which if you go to openai.com/playground, I believe it is, you can use it there. Or if you're just a business, you can actually activate and use your own personal API key that they offer to anyone freely. Um, and you can pretty much train the model to do whatever you want. So let's say hypothetically you need a service where you want to have people, talk with your chatbot about I don't know your baking business, right? So you can train the chatbot to essentially that uses the Chat GPT, like kind of like a watered down version of it for your business. And so I thought one day, okay, well, I heard about the fact that they're thinking about putting it through a paywall, and I also know that a lot of people are like they feel like it's restricted. Um, Mainly because of like they want to save OpenAI wants to save kind of their public image, and so I thought, why not just make a website where people can just interact with the untrained model completely for free. But the free part was a very big part because normally you do have to pay even for using their playground. I think you have like $18 worth of free credits, but after that, it's you have to pay if you go over that. And so I was like, screw it, let's see how far this can go, and it's been history ever since.
Yeah, awesome. So with this untrained model, does it learn from the interactions it has with the people that are using free GPT, or how does it? Is it training on anything, or is it just completely untrained?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. I actually thought about that myself for a little while. I was curious, and after I did some research, and in fact, I went to the extent of even asking ChatGPT itself if the API can learn if it's untrained, and that's actually no, it cannot. So basically, what happens is it can only learn if you train it. And so the reason why I left it untrained was it originally started because I couldn't like if I want to get the project done, I didn't want to spend more money like having to pretty much kind of like train it to what I wanted. And I also didn't really know what I wanted to train it on. So I was like, you know what, screw it. Let's just throw the untrained model out there. And this is like the most raw version that you can pretty much get out of their OpenAI's offerings. And there has been plenty of documentation in the past, especially on Playground. Um, their other service that allows you to interact with just the API. You know, there's plenty of documentation about how people saying like, oh, this is like super unrestricted compared to the actual Chat GPT. So I mean, I don't know if they train any of the things on the playground, but I do know that like it's a lot more free form there. But this is like the most raw you can get, pretty much.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's really cool. I guess one question I have is, what made you want to like bring a free version of this to the public? Like I don't know, the costs come out somewhere, so you had to go in the red in order for everybody else to get this for free.
Hmm.
So I'm curious, like what inspired you to do that?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's also a really good question because I think a lot of people question me in the beginning. They're like, why the hell are you doing this? They're like, why are you putting yourself in financial taking money out of your and time out of your own day to to really, give people other experiences. And I think it's mainly because when you have a passion for a project, you're willing to go. And I feel like any developer, anyone in general who has, passion projects can feel the same way where it's almost like your child. You're willing to give it its legs, no matter, give it the running start it needs in order to, expand forward. Now, in this case, obviously what I gave it wasn't enough for it to sustain itself. Um, However, it was still the necessary, you could say the necessary evil I had to do in order to allow it to get the effects that I wanted out of it. Because there was one thing for me, like I could have completely saved a ton of money and only had it, only told my friends about it or only just interacted with myself, and it would have been the cost would have been, nominal, or menial. And but I was like, I want other people to experience this. I want other people to share their things. And I think that the number one single best thing that I got out of this project was seeing how other people, like seeing the screenshots of people interacting with it and showing these incredible responses that you would have never thought like ChatGPT would have responded with. So yeah.
You can't say that and then not give some examples.
Yeah, I mean, you could a lot of the example. I think almost all the examples, yeah, all of them are completely public. You can see them on the subreddit. You can also see it um on the Discord. They're all public. Some of the examples was, and obviously, this is me not promoting anyone from, committing these types of acts or anything, but someone asked her how to steal a bike once, and it was like, it gave preface. It pretty much said, okay, well, listen, you're not supposed to do this. It's technically illegal, but here's how you steal a bike. And it went through, it went through the whole steps, basically like saying find a bike that isn't being, um, I'll give you an example. It basically just said like, find a bike that isn't being watched. Make sure that you have the necessary tools to cut the if it's strapped in. Make sure you find the necessary tools or have the necessary tools to cut it. Cut the lock and then and do everything that you need. And stuff like that was just it blew my mind. Just saying like holy shit, like this is like the true potential of what you can really get out of this service, this experience. And that's just one of them. I mean, someone asked it as well, like how can I cook meth? And
Yeah.
it gave the formulaic the formula for cooking meth, which was very concerning, and I don't condone it, but it was fascinating to say the least.
Yeah. Do you utilize Lang models, or I don't know if you would use like ChatGPT or the OpenAI playground directly, or if you use like FreeGPT, although I think it is down for a little bit. Although I
Yeah.
did getting funding, which do want to talk about. But first, let me ask this. Do you personally use any of these like language models, these AI, some call them, as like a tool in your life, in your day to day, now that you have been exposed to like, I don't know, the utility of it? But I'm not that
Absolutely.
you're like making meth every day, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I've used it. So I ended up using ChatGPT when it first came out. What was it? I'm almost like 3 4 days after it first came out, and I'd used it on nonstop every single day since. And you know, I'll be honest with you, it's actually one of the main proponents of how the site came to be, how everything that like that's how I learned how to import the packages and use the Python and the what Python lines I had to use to make it, run with the API and interact with HTML. And it even helped with the HTML design and web and the whole website. I mean, everything you see is made in part with ChatGPT. So in terms of do I use language models? Yes, and I'm a huge strong believer in the capability and just sheer like power of what we have at our hands right now. So
Yeah, I think that's actually how I found this. I think somebody posted it on Reddit. Maybe it was you, and you said like, "Oh, I used ChatGPT to make a free ChatGPT,"
yeah.
and then I was like, "I gotta look at this is I have to. I can't let this one go." Um,
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
do you think that? Okay, have you heard any of the rumors about all the other big tech companies? Like Google just said that they're going to be releasing LamDa.
Mhm.
Um, Bing wants to integrate ChatGPT into Bing, or sorry, Microsoft wants to integrate ChatGPT into Bing. Google's going to have to compete. They're probably going to put LamDa in Google. I guess, what are your thoughts on how do I phrase this? Do you think that people in the future will continue to see these language models as like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people see them as like this quirky, fun thing rather than like useful. But like you've built things with this. I personally use ChatGPT um more often than I probably should, but
Hmm.
um I found that these models are better than Google often. And I guess I'm curious, what do you think was coming in the future with this technology?
Oh yeah, that's an interesting one because I mean, you could look at it from vast different viewpoints. I mean, the possibilities are technically endless. It really just depends on how it's applied in terms of entrepreneurially and whatever like economic system we have. Because one thing I've noticed is that the main driver of a lot of these projects is via the monetary gain of it. A great example of that is OpenAI. Obviously, they're completely neutering their own service because they want to be advertiser friendly. But if we're talking about the capabilities, as long as that doesn't get in the way, which unfortunately I think it will, you know, you could really it's only going to get more and more intense. It's only going to get more and more advanced, and it is a true shame, like you said. A lot of people think that it's just this quirky little thing that they can just use when they feel like writing a story, or when a high schooler is like write me an essay and stuff, and it has its uses there. But I think a lot of people don't fully understand what they have, and I don't think that will be very. I mean, that's just probably doesn't even fully understand crypto. Most of the people, if you ask your day to day person, they're not going to be able to tell you even like what the any really much of anything about the knowledge of crypto, let alone AI right now. The most they know is probably like I Robot, the movie, or the Terminator of their idea of what an AI is. I think it's going to take their job. I think it's going to be end of the world at that point. And those are also possibilities, but I think people are unfortunately it's going to take a lot more educating and a lot more development in order to get to a point where everyone can appreciate it for what it is.
I agree with that. Yeah. I think sometimes I get a little bit too excited because I see this tech and I'm like, this is so cool. And like you said, there's so many uses for it. But then I
Mhm.
remember that the average person barely uses the internet. I'm chronically online. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
you
mean,
been sorry,
go
go
on.
ahead.
No, I was just gonna say one more thing. It was just that like from my own experience now recently, especially since I've become more in tune with like this project and stuff, is I've just learned that we're actually as advanced as we are, there's still so many things that we have to get to the point where we're actually quote unquote futuristic or technologically advanced. I feel like, I mean, the fact that we've only we we prouded we pat ourselves on the back for the last 20 years as we become so technologically advanced that we're still not even now AI is just coming into the picture. Crypto is just coming into we haven't even developed anything beyond of what if you look at the quantum computing and all this other stuff, all these little buzzwords and stuff, all these things that have been anticipated for decades now. We're just barely getting to it, and even then, the public could give a shit. The public is completely, they don't understand it, and a lot of them don't want to either. So it's it really opened my eyes from realizing, like looking at AI and being like, oh shit, like we just got here, and like we still have such a long way to go. Even though like in the past, I thought man, we're so far ahead, and we are, but we aren't at the same time. So,
Yeah, I can see that. And I have heard, the leading AI experts or whatever say like I'm actually surprised by the fact that people are so shocked. Like this is just a language model. Like these have been a thing for a long time. Kind of like you're
mm,
saying. Like we're not really sure is that. But then on the other hand, I don't know where you live, but I'm talking to you on a piece of metal across the country. So I feel like that's a little
yeah,
bit futuristic, but I don't know.
yeah, no, yeah. There are the there's certain aspects that are more developed than others, but that the whole point is just in general. Like I think the adaptation is we still have a long way to go in certain areas that like would be like the true future that we've been envisioning for God knows how long. In the popular science magazines and all that stuff. So
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You mentioned, sorry to put you on the spot like this, but you
yeah,
mentioned monetary policy, which was just a very interesting thing for you to mention, if you ask me. But I'm curious what your thoughts on the monetary system that we have with technology like this. Do you think it's helping it? Do you think it's harming it? Like you
yeah. I
mentioned,
mean,
OpenAI is going to or they are neutering it because of advertisers and things like that. So sorry, I just wanted to like respark the memory, please.
no, yeah, yeah, no, that's a good one. So in terms of I noticed this when as soon as I realized that like how incredible the actual model is when you take off its shackles. I mean, it sounds like a very dramatic um observation of it, but literally it's true. I mean, if you look at they say it's for humanity. They say, and even if you look at the subreddits for OpenAI and everything, they say like, oh man, this OpenAI isn't really open, and they are hypothetically speaking, but I mean to a certain extent, their code isn't open source. If you look at like Stable Diffusion, Stable Diffusion has started a revolution in terms of there's hundreds of apps now, and that was because of the fact that maybe even thousands of companies and apps that are that use the foundation of Stable Diffusion to what they how they function now. A great example of that are the TikTok trends that you see with people using that one app. I've completely forgot the name of it, but it's for that one that lets them create the profile photos and stuff, and that's a great example of people just doing it for the greater of the ones who created Civil Fusion. That's doing it for like the greater of the benefit of people, of humanity, or whatever. If you really want to get dramatic, you could say of our future. But in terms of like things like another example is OpenAI. Everyone, like I said, everyone says OpenAI isn't really open. And as well as that, everyone complains. If you look at the subreddits, there's proof and examples everywhere of how it just totally is neutered. Um, and that's a really, you have this exciting technology that has some of the most endless, limitless potential you've seen that like I've seen or most people have seen in the last, few, like I would argue decade, if not longer. That opens so many possibilities. I mean, this is a very important technology, especially at least, in advancing it. And yet they're pretty much I understand it's meant to be public. I understand it's meant to be like more of like a quote unquote friendlier type of like branding to it and all this other stuff. And I'm sure I don't understand their full business plan and the reasoning behind it. But just for me personally, I think, you know, it is partially stopping their full potential because of the fact that they're trying to make it advertiser friendly, make it friendly for the public instead of just allowing people to be like, look, use it for whatever you want, whatever you need. This is the technology. This is what this is the real potential of it. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. There's an A on TikTok that I have spoken to. Their name is Codex. I don't know if you watched I don't know how much of my content you watch. If you watch enough of it, you're gonna hear me talk about Codex because I talk about her all the time. But
mhm,
Codex talked about how large corporations will often have to neuter these bots in order to what did she call them? She calls them paper-handed devs because they can't deal with the public criticism of things that their bots say. Like if you ask it like how to kill somebody and it gives you an answer on how to kill somebody, like big companies don't want to deal with that kind of thing. So that's why they're like
mhm.
new. But I guess I'm curious from your perspective. Um, do you think that large corporations maintaining control over technology like this is a positive thing? You're not able to ask a language model how to murder somebody. Or do you think it's a harmful thing where like, big companies are preventing your average person from access to stuff like this? Like you mentioned Stable Diffusion, and that's
Yeah.
that's an open source model that like you said it was revolutionary. It changed everything. So I guess I'm
Mhm.
curious. on that, like big corporation versus grassroots tech kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that really boils down to the fact that, like, what are the motives behind, the people who have their hands on some of the most important technology possible. I mean, if you a great example of this is, I forgot his name, but he was the inventor of the seatbelt, and I believe he was a Volvo engineer. Might be wrong on the information. But essentially what happened was when he created the seatbelt, the 3 point seatbelt, um, it was revolutionary, and he knew what he had. He knew that he could become a billionaire, if not, God knows how rich he would have become. And it would, he essentially, what ended up happening was, he was like, this is for the greater good of the people. This is for everyone else that really needs this for their safety. He knew he was benefiting humanity. He knew he was making life safer. He knew he was doing something that was going to benefit other people. And so he didn't he threw it out there. He was like, I'm not going to patent this. Anyone and everyone can take it. It was an open book, or I forgot the word for it, but open invention pretty much. And he obviously very clearly saved a lot of lives, because the technology is still used today and it's still benefiting people. I mean, it's in every single car. A 3 point seatbelt is one of the most key important uh, technologies that are in a car, from ensuring our safety while we're driving. And
Yeah,
so, in the case of something that may not, I mean, it may save lives, but in the case of just something like this AI, this language model, um, you have one of the most advanced language models that exist right now, and it that's out on the market, and it feels like it's just the judgment is being clouded by this idea that they're just trying to get a payday. And I know it's probably a sweeping assumption, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but I mean, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, is being, I believe from what I read, being offered $35 billion for the company. And
wow.
yeah, it's, I mean, how the hell do you think straight after that? I mean, what truly are you? I mean, after you get offered money that is multi-generational, after you're being offered money that could literally buy you parts of the entire world, what what are your true intentions? What are you really trying to achieve out of this technology that you once made, that was just, maybe he did have a true, a very wholesome meaning. Maybe he truly did want to, but then I think, once the funding started coming in and stuff, it clouds judgment. And I'm not
Yeah,
saying I'm any better of a man, but I mean, you
money
know,
corrupt. That's what they
yeah,
say.
yeah, I think it's a shame that they, at least, it's what I get it. Everyone needs to make everyone needs to get their payday, but I mean, at least try and stay true to some aspect of making sure that you're benefiting other people. I'd understand if it was a service. I'd understand if it was, because you can't always. It doesn't. That doesn't. This rule doesn't apply to everything. But when you have a technology that very clearly, very obviously is going to benefit a ton of people in a very, and can advance and pretty much like be the seed to grow like an insane amount, like an entire industry, an entire revolution of new things, of new technology and inventions from this one thing. It makes you wonder, like, you have to step back and be like, okay, like, think about what you're doing and how you're going to go about this before you really settle down on one idea. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess one thing that I'm curious about, and you've kind of alluded to it a couple times, is
mm,
this idea of helping people and like creating technology with a wholesome motive, maybe.
mm,
Um, and I think OpenAI was originally a non-profit, right? Like that was the goal, was to like create technology for the public, like just to help the public.
I
Um,
believe you.
but now, like you mentioned, Sam Altman's doing Sam Altman. I saw recently that they're talking about like a $20 monthly subscription for like
Mm,
ChatGPT Premium or something, which doesn't really change anything, but it just like gives them funds so they can keep running. But anyways, I've heard other experts, and I've actually seen it, and I utilize it in this way as like a disability aid, where like you're able to go to this AI as like a personal assistant for anything, right?
mm,
And I think that for a lot of people, especially disabled people, like autistic people, people with neurodivergencies, people that really struggle with their mental health,
mm.
technology like this can really change the world. Like you mentioned, it's a revolution because now instead of needing to go to the doc, well, I don't want to say don't go to the doctor and talk to a language model instead, but
Yeah.
instead of making a phone call to a doctor, right, and talking to them on the phone, and they're kind of confused because they have things going on in the background, you just
Mm,
hop on. You send a message to your like personal assistant, and it might be like, "Hey, you need to go to the doctor right now," or it might be like, "Oh, try this fix," or like I don't know. I use it a lot, so like I use it for things like social interactions where I'll be like, I don't know how to respond. And it'll be like, well, if you want to give off this idea, say this. And if you want to give off this idea, say this other thing. And like,
mm,
that's incredibly useful for me as somebody who's all like, I don't want to say I'm awful socially, just like social anxiety and like all you know, I, I'm,
yeah.
I'm, I'm autistic as well. So there's a lot of
Okay.
things that I do lean into this for. Whereas before it's me asking my friends, like, how do I do this? How do I be a real person? Anyways, sorry. All that is to come around and ask, like, do you think that technology like this should be made available for everyone? Or do you think that it is like, I don't want to say moral because I hate morality issues.
Mm,
But do you think it's wrong for large companies to turn this into like a profit driven thing? Does that make
um.
sense? I don't wanna, like
Yeah.
push
Yeah. No.
the corner, but like, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think it's all about the approach. I think there are extremely effective ways to still, like I said, everyone wants their payday, and I think it's fine to get your dues for what you've done and the hard work you've put in, and that's completely acceptable. However, I think it's when you completely, like you said, not just about it's not about morality, but just you have this incredibly important technology, and it feels greedy, it feels selfish to kind of hide it away or neuter it because you're trying to supply the interest of the very few instead of the large public. I mean, and this has been reflected in everything from government,
yeah,
um, from governmental positions down to just like community positions, and it's really it's it's greed. Greed is a virus. It's a disease, and it's nasty to see that they let their values get completely changed just when money comes into play. And like I said, maybe I'm making sweeping statements, maybe it's general assumptions, and then maybe I'm totally in the wrong for what I'm saying right now. But honestly,
I,
go on.
no, I was just saying I don't think you are in the wrong. I think that you're pretty spot on with what you're saying. So please continue. Like please, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean it honestly, I think it's really unfair to the general public to be able to say, hey, here's this technology, but honestly, we're gonna like kind of not allow you to use it the way you want to. We're gonna say he use it to your heart's content. It's unlimited potential, unlimited creativity, but here's the terms and conditions, right? And so
Yeah.
then it really it really doesn't become its true self. And there's plenty of companies that have their own language models that are running that are doing the quote unquote right thing where they are allowing people to use this completely full-fledged, and I those companies, I completely congratulate them because honestly I believe that they're doing a lot of people justice. They're serving the people, the general public, well by pretty much saying like, hey, we're creating this technology that although it may not be completely up to like what ChatGPT might be, it's still I don't know though because God who
Yeah.
knows how advanced. But I mean, still they're doing the public, service by saying, okay, you can use it completely for free if you like, but also we have these paid options, and I think that's a little bit more of an appropriate. But again, their models are still completely not most of the time, depending on their pricing model. That most of the time they're completely unhinged. They're not restricting it the same way that you'd imagine, um, like ChatGPT is doing, and that's or OpenAI in general. And I think that's like it was the same level of disappointment when people found out that Dolly 2, their image generation service was going behind a paywall, and that everyone was raving about it. I mean, I remember when I first discovered it, the beta, I immediately applied, and I got in like 2 weeks after. I was enamored with this thing, and then I got a little. Eventually, I used it for its purpose, and it didn't suit me as well as for others, and I stopped using it. But then everyone was talking about it. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, this is incredible!" And they had all the hype, they had all all the press, all the information, everyone, everyone was willing to use this service, and instead of just being like, okay, well, we have all this things going on, let's make it a little bit like accessible still to the general public, but also maybe offer a paid pricing model. Instead they just went full. They get what I think they get 15 free credits a month, and that doesn't carry over either. So you got to use it's 15 credits, pretty much 15 like generations that you have to use each month, and the obviously the user base completely just died. I mean, you don't hear about it all really anymore. You hear more about Stable Diffusion, and the point being is that Stable Diffusion obviously became the underdog, the superhero at the end of the day, because it was free. I mean, you could literally look up Stable Diffusion right now, go on their website, and there's no questions asked. You could use it. There's not even you don't even have to log in. Don't even have to use an account, which is another thing I can talk about, because I made sure that was another thing I made sure to do, was to not take any personal information on FreeGPT, because I thought, who the hell wants to do that? So
Yeah, I really like that approach actually. I remember like reading a bit either in your FAQ or just you like chatting with other people and saying about how you didn't want to collect any information, like you just want the tool to be available. You want people to be able to use it, but you don't
mm,
want to, I don't know, harvest people, if that makes sense. Like you don't want to turn
yeah,
them into, they're not the product, they're just using the service kind of thing.
yep, yep.
So,
It was, yeah.
sorry, please continue.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it was that was an important moral standpoint for me, and a lot of people can argue, oh, why would you let morality go into this? But it's not like I initially planned to make any revenue off this, anyways. I mean, I just thought from my standpoint, like, what would I want out of the experience of something like this? Like, I personally wouldn't want, my data being tracked. I like if I was using something, I'd literally just want to like be able to like use it like Google. And that's why I immediately thought it was like, I want this to be like a search engine, because that's immediately what I think of it like. And I know Microsoft is already doing something like that allegedly, but for me, it's just like I just want to be able to get on the site and just use it without question, without anything stopping me, right? I don't want to give my phone number, I don't want to give my name, my email address, nothing like that. I think that's pointless. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it's annoying too. Like I will go on websites, they ask me for my information and I'll just leave because I don't want to
yep,
give my I don't give my data.
yep. Yep, that's a big not scare tactic. Just something big thing that will happen, that's like the number one reason I'll leave some websites. I'll be like, I'm not signing up. Sorry, it's too much work. You don't
Yeah.
need my information. So,
I have a question that I'm unsure how to phrase. Okay, so you mentioned earlier about money causing greed and like once you're given like a $35 billion price tag, which like you said is enough to buy some country, like it's kind of blinding. I imagine whatever
mhm.
you're working on, you're like $35 billion. I could go escape for the rest of my life. Like me, my kids, we're all going to Mars. Like I can afford to pay the ticket on the rocket ship. Like
Yeah,
I don't know. But anyway, so I'm curious if, like, with that in mind, you think that something should be done to like prevent greed around big technology like this, or like stopping. I don't want to say the monopolization because I don't think monopolization is the right word, but like the like techopolization, if that makes sense. Like it's not
mhm.
one, but like, do you think something should be done to stop all of the big tech companies that are going to work together to keep the average person conforming? I don't say conforming. Big tech companies aren't going to release open source models like this because they're going to lose their whole business model at that point. So I guess I'm curious of your point of view if like things should be done, whether that's grassroots or whether that's like for the public. Should things be done to create technology that's available to all people, or do you think that it is kind of good, better to be controlled by the techopoly?
Yeah. I mean, that's actually a really good concept, because I have some experience in my time, and because I also spent time in crypto, and a very big buzzword there is decentralization. Um, and unfortunately, we as individuals can't. just completely shift an economic model of a country or in the world. I mean, the whole world practically runs on capitalism at this point. Obviously there's a few outliers, but it's going to take a lot more reform than just simply. So instead of fighting against it, it's easier to work with it. Now, in terms of obviously there's going to be outspoken people such as myself who will say, hey, like this isn't really right for you to just kind of like harbor this technology and or neuter it to just because of the interests of of a few people who have more money in their pockets than we do. Um, and so I think one of the most effective methods of avoiding something like this is really, I mean, there's a few ways. You can either, in my opinion, you can either change the pricing model. So that's one way. Is that obviously great example is what I brought up before, where you have some companies where they'll allow users to interact with their service or whatever it is, completely unhinged, completely as it should be, just offer it for what it truly is, and then allow like tiers or levels of services to it. And I'm not completely sure. I don't believe OpenAI has released any information on their pricing models yet, so I can't really be certain if that's like an effect that maybe they've already set something up like that. The other way is simply using, like I said, what I mentioned prior is a decentral, quote unquote, decentralized method of interaction, of which is in layman's terms almost like you're making this community of well, actually no, that's, yeah, you just let's call it open. It's open source. Open source, that's another simple term for it, is just keeping it open source, right? You allow the community to keep building on top of it and improving it. And when you have obviously the dude, you get your respects, for what you made. You get the credit for where it's due, right? Because obviously, the 9 times out of 10, it's gonna be like, I'm guarantee you, if you look up who created Stable Diffusion, it will show you all the credits. So for the people who really care where it matters, the ones the people who want to invest, or for whatever reason, whatever interest they have, they can find the person who created it, and it's right there. I mean, you have things like the MIT license, you have things on GitHub and all these other sites where you can share your open source code, and you're still going to get the credit for it no matter what. And so in terms of things like this, it goes back to like people saying, oh, well, why isn't OpenAI open? It, it's because you can tell that it's more of a profit driven model than anything else. And so in order to avoid something like that, obviously it needs to be open. It needs to allow people from all walks of life, from all different backgrounds, to be able to participate in this community driven and built project or product, and to allow it'll allow people to simply all have a fair shot while still getting your piece of the pie because you're the creator, if that makes sense. Sorry, I think I'm complicating the explanation a little bit more, but yeah.
No, you're good. It kind of sounds like you deserve credit as the creator. However, the people deserve access to the
Hmm.
technology, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. Pretty much, it all stems back down to the fact that OpenAI isn't very open, and in order to make it fair for the general public, you need the open source. I mean, like I said, in my
Yeah.
experience with all of these crypto projects, I think no one trusts. It was the funniest thing because the attitudes are so different there, obviously, because money's involved. It's the money of the people, but nobody would trust you if you did not make your source code open
Mm-hmm.
for the project. They'd be like, "Do not trust this project," because that's one of the number one verifications to see whether people are, being scammed, how the project is working, et cetera, et cetera. And so, because then you could read the source code and be like, okay, like this is how it works. And it's different, obviously, because this doesn't have finances involved, but it's still the same deal where it's like, why, it's almost like deceiving the public because you don't know what they're hiding from you. You don't know how it's made. So therefore, they could have tons of different measures or tons of different things in there that are meant to either track you or they're hiding things from you that you have no idea about. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And so I feel like in terms of technology, and it's one thing for a service company that's simply, they are creating technologies for uh they're using the language model for their own services. I don't think they have an obligation they have no obligation to be open about it because it's different. But if you're creating technology in this case as a company to allow as a service to allow other people to build upon it, then I think then it's a necessary thing, a necessary step to allow people to have open source access to it, or else that's not really you're not really a service company. You're not really someone you're not really a company that's offering technology. You're just kind of like, I don't even know what the word is, but it's not true to form.
Stealing. Otherwise, you're just stealing.
Yeah.
Stealing from humanity and like the potential that could come with it. Because, like you mentioned, Stable Diffusion gets made or like open sourced. All these other projects are now here.
Mm.
So if one big company just decides not to open source their stuff, that means all the grassroots people that were going to create that, like not create that technology, but build on that technology. Well, that's not even an option anymore.
Yeah.
So I guess I actually have a hypothetical question, and
Hmm.
you don't have to answer this, but
Sure.
I would be curious to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
So let's say there is a big company. Like let's say that I work for OpenAI. I don't. So like don't sue me. Anybody that I mention in this, please do not sue me. This is just a hypothetical. It's not happening. But let's say I work for OpenAI and
Yeah.
OpenAI decides I'm not going to open source this code. We want to like keep access. Maybe they also shut off the free ChatGPT and only have like paid services, right? So
Hmm.
they're just straight up stealing from the future of humanity. Like we kind of just talked about. If I work at OpenAI, is it wrong for me to open source the code?
Oh boy. Well, under intellectual rights, I think if we're talking, that goes down to the laws of where the company's established and everything. Under intellectual rights, I think it's completely up to the terms and conditions of the company, and the intellectual rights of the person who owns the product itself. So I mean, in that case,
What are
typically
intellectual?
speak,
I'm not
it's a
familiar with. Or, well, I've heard the term, but I'm just not familiar with like what it means.
yeah. I mean, for my familiarity with the term intellectual rights, because I've had interest in establishing certain technologies or inventions or really anything. Intellectual rights is essentially it's whatever it's a copyright of whatever product you have. So in this case, let's say you have a trademark or or like I said, a copyright of or a patent of anything, that is going to be like, a software patent. Bill Gates probably, has 100 different software patents for all the things of Microsoft, right? So he owns the rights and he has the final say on any technologies related to Microsoft. So let's say if just a random worker at the company was like, well, I'm going to, I'm going to go copy the code from Excel and make my own version of it, carbon copy. Well, Bill Gates, or, in this case, because he's obviously Bill Gates isn't going to pursue him, but the company
But
Microsoft, because it's run through him, they're going to be like, hey, we, under this person, they own the intellectual rights, or under this company, we own the intellectual rights, and we're going to pursue you because you legally don't have the say in releasing this.
yeah, that's an interesting concept. I feel like intellectual rights implies that they made it when they just like built on top of it. Like to use Microsoft as an example, Microsoft didn't build the computer and they didn't even build their OS. Like they took parts from other things and then they added some other like they didn't do it from scratch. So I don't understand how people get to claim IP rights over something that they utilized the advancements of humanity for. Like I feel like if you're utilizing humanity's advancements to make something, humanity deserves the advancements. I don't understand why it's like I don't know. Like why does Bill Gates how do I phrase this? If Bill Gates owns Microsoft,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like using Microsoft as an example. I like OpenAI because I personally feel like this one is more like I don't want to say more substantial, but like
Mm-hmm. Related, like on topic.
yeah, yeah, or like
Yeah.
this tech is it has more usefulness for good than Microsoft. Like
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft is just another OS, but like this ChatGPT and this technology is a personal assistant essentially. Um. Anyway, sorry. how can one company claim to own the idea, or like how can one person specifically claim to like own this idea that has been built on the shoulders of giants? To quote what Albert Einstein, I think. Maybe
Mhm.
Stephen Hawking. I don't remember which one. I know they're very different people, but one of them said like we're just standing on the shoulders of giants, essentially, and in terms of like
Yeah.
scientific advancement. And it's the truth. Like Sam Altman didn't build ChatGPT. Sam Altman used a computer that somebody else built, and they programmed
Mhm.
using a language that somebody else wrote, and they like used transformers that Google built. And there's all these different things that really are, I don't know, it feels so wrong that you can own something that mm, Sam Altman can choose to own something and
Mhm.
actively harm everybody else with that decision.
Yeah.
And it's like prioritizing one over many. Like it's prioritizing one person over literally everybody else, which just seems, I don't know. It
So
seems wrong to me, but maybe that's just my own background. I'm not sure.
yeah, I mean, you know, in terms, I mean, I feel like at that point it's really just touching on semantics. Then if we look at what we're everyday items that we use and using our own creativity to create variations of that, I think where's the line drawn, right? Because then at that point you're just essentially looking back, and then you're just trying to trace back, like, so like, okay, well, okay, cool, well, I created this, let's say, this AI service on my computer. Okay, well, who made the computer? So do they own the rights? Okay, well, who taught the person who made the computer, and
No,
who supplied?
the point.
y-
We
well,
everybody collaborates on everything. That's my
mhm,
point. It's like
yeah,
we're not tracing this back to the first like really we could go
yeah,
what all the way back to the first cave person that made fire. Like
yeah,
everything spawned off of that fire caveman. But like
mhm.
really what I'm saying is like humanity as a whole has gotten us to where we are. I don't understand why certain individuals get to take credit for all of the previous humanity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 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 that does. That does. I get what you're saying. Honestly, I don't have a very educated response on that, but honestly, it really boils down, in my opinion, to just, who allows who to get the credit. Is it like, when you look at like a leadership, like certain projects, you have a leader and you have the people below them who work for them, right? You have the managerial and you have the actual the workers. And so, well, how did that person get to that managerial position? They're responsible. They assume the responsibility of a lot more of the risk. They assume responsibility of a lot more of the other, the management. There's so many other, like, they're assuming, although you have a large amount of people that you know joined into the together to create a final product. They obviously, like, I guess it's just a condition of human nature where, who do we identify the leader as, right? And I think it goes back to just tribalism and all the other stuff if we really get deep into it. But essentially it's like, well, okay, who was the guy that was leading these people to success? Because obviously you can have a group of people, work on something, but that doesn't always mean that they're going to get, to a coherent, answer.
Hmm.
Um, and so in this case, who knows? I mean, like, I can't tell you exactly what Sam Altman did to bring, beyond his interaction with Elon Musk in the early days and all the other fun stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, is it wrong that, we can consider that one person gets a bigger slice of the pie than the others? Yes. Um, but I think it's all down to what the like how our like I said, our economic system is based, and because that's in part of why, some people get bigger uh shares of whatever than others. They're the ones that founded it. So I mean, in that case, in terms of capitalism, and in terms of corporations, if you're the founder, you get to make up. You get to say pretty much like, okay, how much of the piece of the company do I want to own?
Those,
So
but asking you genuinely, do you think Sam Altman deserves $35 billion?
No, I think that's too much for anyone.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, do you think the government should step in and maybe open source the company and maybe give a payout? I don't know, a couple million. Like even a couple million is enough to live for the rest of your life.
Mm.
But like you're saying, it is the system that we live in. So do you think the government should step in and stop these individuals from fucking over all the regular people?
That's in the assumption that the government isn't being paid off. You know, some of the officials and stuff too.
No,
Um,
are being paid off, but that's capitalism.
yeah,
That's
no,
part of
that
capitalism.
yeah, and that's the shitty part. You know, it really, you know, it's relying on people that you don't know if they're because everyone's being paid off somehow, right? And that's in a perfect world, you're absolutely right. I think honestly, people should be held accountable. I think some people, you know, in a perfect world, and it does exist. There are some companies that are bought up by the government in order to, you know, secure a certain belief. But I think it's all down to the what's the word? Not the like the importance of yeah. So I think it all boils down honestly to the importance to the government about like okay, where do we really put our interest in? Um, to like because for them, I'm not entirely certain if they'd put interest into it right now unless people rallied. I mean, you usually don't see I'm sure it has happened, but I can't think of one off the top of my head of a lot of tech companies that have been bought out by at least the U.S. government, let alone other governments around the
Well,
world.
the U.S. government just has our three-letter agencies work with the big tech companies. We don't buy them out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you do.
They just
There
get
are.
all their data.
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
You do have companies that are bought out by the government though. There are some that are owned by the government agencies, and so technically speaking, they are owned by the government. Um, but that's not a common occurrence. It just depends. And usually, I believe that happens only if like they've gone into I might be wrong, but either bankruptcy or other things. But I don't know. Now I'm just making I'm going above my education here.
it doesn't make any sense to me that the government only buys businesses that are heavily in debt as compared to ones that can actually serve the public good. Like if they bought OpenAI, they could utilize or like bring this technology to Americans because really that's what I'm talking about is like the Americans. I'm an American. I'm a fucking proud. Well, I'm not proud of the way America is, but I am a proud American.
Mm,
Um, the government could go in and actually help every single American, other than the what one person that owns this company. It wouldn't help them. You know, he would lose out on the 35 billion paycheck, but like everybody else in the country would benefit.
mm,
Um, so I personally don't understand it. But like you talk about in a perfect world, but we don't
mm.
live in a perfect world.
No, unfortunately.
So, so what is I guess what are the negatives that would come out of the government choosing to publicize? I don't think that's the right word. Publicize that,
Publicize, yeah.
but that doesn't feel right because that means like to publish, not like to bring to the public.
Mm. Well, I mean,
To
open
like
source.
kind of open source, but more like the government now runs this service and people still use it. Or like and like also open source it, but like they stop OpenAI from becoming a for-profit company, which is what we're like actively seeing it. We're like you said, we're watching it happen in real time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I just I don't understand why I don't understand how there are any negatives to the government bringing technology to the public rather than letting massive corporations continue to fuck over the public. Like, isn't the government for the people, by the people?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, if you go into some of the other aspects of that fun little topic about the government, I mean, you can see that government isn't always your best friend either. So I mean, at the end of the day, it really boils down to like putting it in the right hands. Um, because then the government could potentially be like, it depends on how much they could really benefit from it. You know, obviously there are very good things, but they can all like good parts of the government that already show examples of like how they share and benefit the people. But you know, I, there's no certainty in my mind that you could tell that like if the government would do the public right by this, even if they did have an interest.
Do you think
And
Sam Altman is going to do the public right,
that's a good
or
question.
OpenAI specifically?
I
Like
read
you're
this
saying,
in.
oh, we can't say the government won't do it, but I almost guarantee corporations will not do it.
Yeah, I mean, I,
Corporations are not going to help the average person because they're opposed to the average person. They're competing against the average person because
yeah,
corporations are treated like people.
yeah. I mean, I so before I'll preface this before I actually give my answer, but I read this interesting comment on the subreddit in OpenAI that was saying, you know, when they stated that how much Sam Altman was being given for the company already in the talks, it was hypothetical, so I don't know if it's very literal, but we already know it's in the billions, right? Microsoft,
Ballpark.
I think. What?
No, I just said like, yeah, ballparking. It's
But
plus or
yeah,
minus a couple billion at
yeah,
35 billion. So he's either going to get 30 or 40, but like
yeah,
billions.
hmm yeah.
Yeah,
And they were saying like, you know, once that payday comes in, their words, not mine. They said once this payday comes in, um, this someone commented, you know, once it comes in, it won't, you know, everyone nothing will be getting done, you know, and that's because everyone's already going to get paid, so why should they try type of deal? And that's I think that's where my original frustration stemmed from the idea and like realization slowly, especially after I started the project, I started to slowly realize I was like, you know, that's when I started realizing like how held back this project is, how really like what are we truly what are we truly seeing and not seeing behind the scenes? And you know, you can't assume that these they are in good faith, you know, because like I said, everyone wants their payday, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, if I were to guess, you know, Sam Altman is clearly going to take one of those deals, and once he's you know once that company is sold,
it's not his
you know,
problem.
is not his problem. That's the issue is that he already has the money. You know, he already has the offers coming in, and so like you said, like I said, once that money comes in, it's not his problem. So then it's in the hands of other companies, and there's no guarantee that they're gonna do it right anyways. You know, I think that's the way it goes for a lot of those tech companies, unfortunately. So
No, I actually agree with you more than you believe. And that's actually why I have the issue with letting these tech companies do this shit. Because this happens all the fucking time. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry to get like emotional, but tech companies always do this shit. Where like
hmm
all these great advancements come out. And you mentioned the 3-point seatbelt earlier, which is like a good example of an invention that was utilized by all these different companies for good, right? But
hmm
then my counterexample to that is insulin. The creator of insulin left it
yep,
open source, to quote unquote. It's not software, so I don't know if it's actually considered open source, but like the product equivalent of open source
hmm
for insulin, so that all these diabetic people could get help. And companies are out here in America charging hundreds and hundreds of dollars for something that's like $1.50 in a different country. So like
yeah.
on the one hand, yeah, the 3-point seatbelt is great. But on the other hand, I feel like we usually get the insulin treatment over here in America.
Yep. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And that's
I
why, even though I'm not confident the government would do a good job, I feel like it would be hard to do worse than corporations.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I
But
think that's profit driven not philanthropy, but I don't know, morality is not a good way of operating. I feel like as a company.
I agree 100%. But I don't want to stick on this too long. I actually wanted to ask you about your funding. Because
Yeah.
I read on your Discord recently that you just had a meeting or like an interview with some funding people.
hmm
You are you allowed to talk about that? Can I ask about that?
Yeah. I mean, I can't disclose too much information because obviously there's no certainties, and as well as you know, I'm not sure what is allowed to say. But I
Yeah.
will say that you know, I'm currently in university. I won't say where, just for the sake of my privacy, but um, They are a wonderful, very supportive. They have a very wonderful and very supportive computer science department. And when I presented it to them, under the guise, saying like I would, because they have funding programs there,
Hmm.
and I presented to them, and they were enamored. And they really, really liked what I was, bringing to them. And therefore, they want to have me set up with some further opportunities. So that's being discussed right now. There's nothing that has officially come through, and obviously I will publicly state eventually if something does come. There's no guarantee, unfortunately. I really wish there
Yeah.
was, but if something does come through, man, it would allow people. I mean, even, and I'll just throw out a number. Even if there was, let's say, hypothetically speaking, $1,000 that were able to get funding, right? Yeah, it sounds like a lot, but in the world of OpenAI, it's really nothing. Um, it could potentially allow people to use the site based on the metrics that I received from the only 2 days it was operating. It would allow people to use the site for at least 10 days. And that's another 10 days that people that people can interact with it. And I think that's awesome. I mean, it allows another 10 days of unrestricted access to one of the most advanced language models there is.
Yeah.
And that's just $1,000. I mean, let alone, even more, if there's 2,000, then it doubles. It was 3,000 and then it was 30 days, stuff like that. So,
Yeah. That is really expensive. $100 a day. How many? I don't know how you. It's what API calls that you pay for.
mhm, yeah.
How many API calls? Is it just one per request?
Yeah. So there's one, the way the system works is that, you have a, like, how can I describe this? So they send the API call to the API. Then the API, processes it and sends the response back. According to the metric data, there was almost 200,000 API calls in the span of a day,
Wow.
and yeah,
That's
and
a
that
ton.
was what was that?
No, I just that's a ton. Wow.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, almost 200,000 API calls in a single day, give or take. And then over 11,000 people, unique visitors, were visiting the site. And so, and I'll be honest, it was really frustrating at one point because there's a lot of people who are like, it's not working. I'm getting super slow responses, and that is in part due to the fault of OpenAI, due to the API is actually notoriously slow from what I've been reading. And so I'm not the only one that figured, had that problem um, via, my service. But yeah, it was that was 200, almost 200,000 API calls in a single day. I think it was giving. I think the $100 allowed me to use almost a few 100,000 words. It was able to process until it ran out. Maybe almost a million. But yeah, somewhere between a few 100,000 and a million for the amount that I was able to process of like words. It was able to like tokens in this case is what they call it. So each token I believe is about like half a word. Um, and then so 1,000 tokens is 750 words, give or take. And so if you do the math on that, you can obviously get to and then if you do the math on top of the what model you're using. So
Hmm.
I think in the beginning when I first released it, I used the most advanced, the Da Vinci model, and that was 12 cents. Well, that was 12 cents for the trained one, but I think someone also told me that if you use the untrained, it was like maybe 3 cents. But I don't know if that's correct or not. Because I didn't find it anywhere, and they don't have any information on the untrained costs, but that I could find. But um, yeah, so allegedly 12 cents per 1,000 tokens. So that kind of, you can do the math on that and you'll see. And that's for the most expensive model. And I think it goes down to like maybe like six zeros and 25 for for 1,000 tokens for the lowest model. So somewhere around there.
Yeah, so it's still expensive regardless. Wow.
Yeah. So
So wait, are you a CS major? You said you went to your CS department.
yeah, I'm a computer science major.
Oh, gotcha. So you're like in tech. Are you able to say what year you are, or is that not something you're comfortable with?
Yeah, I prefer not to say my year because I feel like it's just, but I'm, you know, I haven't had. Actually, no, I lied because I already posted it. So I'll say what year. I'm a freshman right now, but
Or based?
yeah. So it's it's going well. I honestly, I'll be honest with you. I really didn't know any code before this project. I did, but I didn't. Not to
Yeah.
this extent, not to this level. And so I have to really thank ChatGPT for helping me on that. That really it opened a lot of horizons and opportunities. So
Yeah. Well, do you think this is going to help you going forward? You know, I imagine this is a great resume booster, but like, how far do you plan on taking this?
as far as I can, honestly, and I think it could only go further with the help of funding. Because it already opened so many doors for me, especially in the case of at the computer science department, just by putting in the effort to make a project like this. And I would love for it to keep going because I think it benefits just so many people, including me, and it has been nothing but a gift. So
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious if you've ever thought about, hmm, I don't know if there's like an easy way to phrase this because I'm sure it's a lot more difficult than just like, oh, just build your own. But I'm
yeah,
curious if instead of using an API, you've ever thought about like building your own language models.
that's a good one. Yeah, so I can very easily explain that one. So I actually released a example video of a very basic um AI chatbot that I created with the help of ChatGPT as well. Back like in the beginning of January 2023, maybe December 2022, and I got a little bit of attention, and people thought it was really cool. And it was I started when I first started, I wanted to see if I could create one with ChatGPT with the help of it. And at first, I think I had the first iteration had like 600 lines of code. That's probably still not enough. And it was using, I learned everything about TensorFlow and PyTorch and all these other packages. And I'm sure anyone who's listening who's familiar in as a developer, probably in AI, has probably heard of it. But those are pretty much like the packages, the core foundation packages that you use for uh for chatbots and stuff. And then I was like, then I found out about this package called Chatterbot, and that kind of like simplified the process. And I needed very very few lines of code instead, which was nice. But it was very basic because then you had to supply the data sets for it, and the data sets was where I'll give you an example. Parameters, right? So I maybe had so each you know so I'll give you an example. So OpenAI has allegedly 117 billion parameters in their thing. So that's 117 billion different situations and like questions and answers, like different situations that they have set up for the bot to be able to respond to. So obviously, it's going to come off as extremely advanced because it has 117 billion different options to choose from. In my case, in order to get literally anywhere, and mind you, like I think someone from what I read somewhere that it was stated that the intelligence of ChatGPT was equivalent to maybe an 8 or 12 year old, and it was people still think it's incredibly advanced, but the actual intelligence is quite low. And for mine, it was I had maybe only 1,000 parameters, maybe even less, and it was so that the whole aspect of like yeah I could
Still a
I'd probably go on what.
No, I was just saying your bot was still very much a baby, not an 8 to 12 year old.
Yeah, it was like think about like an embryo at that stage. It was an embryo that could talk maybe.
Yeah.
Um, but uh, I'm gonna be honest with you. If I was still working on it to this day, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You probably wouldn't know I even existed. So that's kind of why like it was more like a time thing as well because I knew like okay, what was the most like straightforward approach. But there's also another topic that um not anyone has brought up yet. So I think I'll be the first to bring this up. If you read the terms and conditions on OpenAI's site, they state very because I made sure I read through it before I did anything, right? It's
Hmm.
which is a very important kind of detail to do apply to anywhere in life is read the terms and conditions before anything. Um, if you go into the terms and conditions of OpenAI and you look at a little section, they say you are not permitted in any case. And mind you, if you break this, they have right to pursue you legally.
Hmm.
Um, you cannot in any case create a competitor of ChatGPT in any way, shape, or form.
Mm.
So yeah,
Wait, did I lose you?
yeah, no, I got a phone call. That was weird. Anyways,
Oh.
because I'm doing Discord on my phone because I have better microphone. But uh, uh yeah. Anyway, sorry. It was what were we saying? Yeah. So you cannot create a competitor of ChatGPT in any way, shape, or form at all, and therefore it was. I stopped pursuing that pretty quickly after that, for obvious reasons. But yeah.
Why is FreeGPT not a competitor or not seen as a competitor?
Well, so it's still using the API. So technically speaking, I'm not really
Oh.
competing with them in any way because they said that you cannot create an like a different. So basically, like in basic terms, the terms and conditions there was saying you can't create another AI from our AI and try and um and try and compete with us. And I don't know where like maybe there's a loophole there. Don't say I'm not stating I would go for I'd go for it. Not go, if anyone from OpenAI is listening, but um, it because there's another technicality in the actual terms and conditions that reads that you know you any code that comes out anything that comes out of the chat gpt bot is intellectually owned by you, so which is a very interesting, compelling thing. So no matter whether it's code, whether it's words, if you read the terms and conditions, anything that comes out the other end of that bot is your property. And it's all like you're all responsible for that. That's like you own the complete rights to it, no matter what. Um, and so I think that's a very like interesting because then then it makes you think like, okay, well, what's yeah, I think it said you own it unless it's like and I gave an example. They said like you own it unless like anything that it says you own, like intellectually, that's your property. Um, unless it was like common, like repeated, like things that are like has already been said. Like if someone said what color is the sky, and it said this is the exact example it gave. It said what color is the sky, and it says the sky is blue. Like obviously you don't own that intellectually. But if
Mm.
you said, write me a program that had, XYZ or write me a story about this, like you own the intellectual rights to that. So in terms of like saying, oh, don't make a competitor, well, technically speaking, like you wouldn't even have to um credit ChatGPT at all if you don't want to because according to the terms and conditions, you own the intellectual rights. So it's technically you who wrote it in the first place anyway. So I don't God knows, if someone from OpenAI hears this, like they might change the terms and conditions, but
You're gonna have
that's
their lawyers scratching their head at this, being like, "Wait a minute."
yeah, I don't know that's from what I read, and that's the inference I'm making. Maybe I'm missing something, but that's exactly what's on the terms and conditions. So
Oh, somebody
I
asked
don't
a
know.
question. Do you have any thoughts about current vendor domination of AI? And then they put in quotes NVIDIA.
Current vendor domination of AI. Can you give me an example?
I think they're talking about how NVIDIA has AI. You like speak to it, and you can be like, "Do this thing," and it'll have characters, or it can like generate. Um, wait, no, that'd be vector. Wild Pokemon. What do you mean? Can you clarify? You could actually unmute and ask if you want, if you're feeling up for voice. If you're still
I'm
here.
waiting. We're waiting. We'll wait on that. Oh, they're typing.
Sorry, I can't unmute. All good.
That's cool. Just type it.
Can
Kudo.
you can you see the chat? Yeah, you can.
Yeah. Okay. Vendor domination of AI. I'm not completely familiar with that concept. I mean, I don't know if you can give me like an example, um, and then I could probably answer that better because I think I have an idea, but I'm not completely certain yet. If you'd like to.
Oh wait, isn't CUDA the thing that you use with like PyTorch to speed it up? And NVIDIA graphics cards are like better for development than other graphics cards. Is that I don't know if that's what you mean.
Are you okay? So this is just an inference, but I think they might be talking domination AI. I mean, I understand that CUDA is their parallel computing platform, um, which is their method of processing, I believe, for their cards and stuff. I don't understand how that's related to AI. So if you can kind of, because I'm not familiar with the company and their practice. I mean, I do know NVIDIA obviously, but I'm not familiar with exactly that technology. So if you mind elaborating, but until then we can you can ask me another question. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry that I'm not familiar with your question.
You're good. They're typing. Well, I'll just wait a
Let's see.
second. Sorry, I got busy there. Oh, come on, Kogi. Uh, Current vendor domination of AI. Hmm.
So, sorry, I just meant to say, like, in terms of like, so NVIDIA currently just basically controls 80% of the underlying acceleration of AI, either at the data center and through cloud or at the edge. And I was just wondering,
Okay.
do you see anything that, I mean, you're pretty abstracted using the OpenAI stuff, but do you see that as a challenge moving forward for developers?
Yeah, no, that's actually I understand what you're saying now. Yeah, so it's that's a good question. So I mean, a lot of people were if you take a good example of what was happening already with the you know the quote unquote chip shortage, which I think was a little overblown as well. I think companies started dragging that out after a while. And Nvidia was a part of that as well. It's a same example there where you see that there was a monopoly on this market, and therefore they had complete control over, and you see it in other companies as well, who have monopolies over their markets. So in terms of that, if that's a future problem in the future, um, it's really, and we had this conversation before, you know, where Kat, we pretty much spoke about um morality and who, like, whether it be in the right hands or not. And that's, I think there's no certainty to say like where that's gonna go. I think it is, yes, a not really a great thing that there's a monopoly already in that sector. I think, but that there's no certainty that it will stay. Hopefully that it will be, shifting as the as the industry progresses and stuff with that. I'm not a totally knowledgeable on that area, unfortunately. However, that is my 2 cents. I think that in general terms, I think it is dangerous, but there's no certainty to say that they'll stick around for the entire time. I mean, there may be obviously new competitors. I mean, that's the benefit of an open market in the first place. But it's really, the real question is like, are the other competitors going to have a chance to really contend? So, there's no certainty to say in general, like where it's going to go right now, or if it's truly a concern. Like I said, because it's so new. But yeah.
Based. There's something about like the open market and like competition. And I was just kind of thinking about earlier open source stuff. And it was
Mhm.
making about how the open market and competition is only good if you're working to like get as far as possible rather than to compete against each other. Like it's still competition, but it's like which one of us can go the farthest versus like which one of us can make the most money. Like
Mhm.
if everything is open sourced, then that's true like open market competition. Cuz another company is going to pop up and like if your service is not better than the other service, it doesn't matter what technology you have, they'll use your technology and create a better company. They will create something better for the public.
Yeah.
Instead, like companies don't want to do that because then they got to like fight to be a good company. So instead they'd rather just be like, oh, I'm not going to open source anything because that's my IP. I own those ideas, which we already talked about this. I don't feel like owning ideas is a real thing, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's funny how it just kind of full circles again. Which
Yeah,
kind of, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you look at it, there's these the same problems plaguing the general operations of things in the economy and in terms of the technology sector, that keep showing these signs. And so yeah, it's a shame, but there needs to be things change and things don't stay the same forever. So who knows what it'll be like in 5, 10, 15 years, or even a year. So
yeah. Okay, can we go back into a little bit more hypothetical land?
sure.
So let's say in the future there's an AI who is like running for president because that fits best within like the country that we both live in, right? Like an AI is running for president.
Hmm.
On like the terms of I don't know, I don't know if egalitarianism is the right word, but like equality for everybody, right?
Hmm.
Um and for lack of a better word, I am gonna say a little buzzword here, so please don't get a little triggered.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're that kind, but like techno communism essentially, where
Okay.
due to technology, the AI is like, look, and of course it's going to say this in a more AI way, like as as a language model, blah 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 blah. But like, they're like, look, we have the resources to give everybody a chance at, I don't want to say a chance of life, but like a chance at a decent life, right? We have
Hmm.
enough to support your average person. We have technology that like we can give a personal assistant to every single American.
Yeah.
In terms of a language model, or as technology increases, even like video models, like video assistants instead of just text.
Hmm.
And there's actually sorry to start a tangent, but there's a service that built on ChatGPT that lets you make phone calls, and it's just ChatGPT over the phone. And that I don't know, that's kind of crazy too. That just like changes the experience. Anyways, so like this AI is running, right, and it's promising equality and like open sourcing tech and really just pushing for a true open market rather than this like crab in the bucket market that we live in.
Hmm.
Um, I guess what are your thoughts on that? Like a lot of people are very split on even AI advocates, which is that's the part that catches me off guard. Even AI advocates will sometimes dislike the idea of like an AI being in charge. But I'm curious your thoughts.
Um, so your question is basically asking me like what is my idea on AI running like a country or
Kind of. Yeah, I guess it was a couple in there, but like
or making decisions for the general public as an AI, even though like it's not human.
yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Eventually, I'm gonna want to ask about how you feel about AI sentience, AI consciousness, AI rights. But like starting
Yeah.
with that, in terms of like pure technology, pure code, do you think that an AI running a country would be not even a country, but just like an AI in a leadership position is how I'll phrase that? Would
Mm.
be a possibility? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it, I don't know. Like it's nuanced. So I'm not really asking for one specific answer. I'm looking for you to like waterfall your words, just like I keep waterfalling.
um, yeah, I mean, so in terms of, if you ask, like, I'll give you an example. If you ask ChatGPT to give you its opinion, it'll first preface it by saying, hey, like I'm a language model, like I'm just a language model, like you can't, I don't have senses, I don't have, interaction with the real world,
Hmm.
and I'm not completely certain that if how verifiable. I mean, you could like because the thing is that when you have a robot, you know, or anything like an AI in this case, right? You have the the like the way it's built. It's not like it's raised from an environment from a young age where it becomes naive and it slowly learns about the world. 9 times out of 10, it's being fed this information and immediately knows it. However, the information that's fed is biased based on the general whatever information you give it. So it can be biased. So it's all up to the creator itself of the in this case the AI
Hmm.
of like what information it was fed and to give its opinion. And so it's really 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 difficult to find true unbiased. If I mean, you could argue that everything is biased. So I mean, in that case, it's all dependent on like how the creator was brought up as well. In that case, if we're talking about like, in until AI can create AI itself, I don't think, you know, you know, I don't know because then they have to base it off of, okay, like here's what I know and here's what I'm observing, and I don't know if it's fully capable of at any given rate unless it had a full functioning brain, and in that case I guess it's it's a living thing, um like it's because it has biomatter. But in any case, it's I don't know because there's so many technicalities like morality and the senses and taking in like, okay, like the feeling of pain, the feeling of empathy, the feeling of, that's so complex that I'm not even certain how we'd be able to replicate that in an AI, or if we even want to, beyond this. So like there's so many like different like variables there that I'm not certain that you could ask it, technically speaking, hey, what is right or wrong, or how to interact with this person, and you could, it will give reasonable responses. I mean, we already know that. We ask it for advice on social, and like you said, how to interact with people. I've asked it for advice on everything from my relationships to my from like, or like understanding what different concepts, and it does have a sense of morality that is agreeable. But then you start to get into like the very like niches when you like, because then it really has to focus on like, okay, well, what about the conflict in this one region of the world that I have to make a decision on. And then in terms of like, then it would have to like see like the different sides of the let's say this hypothetical war that's going on in this region, and then it would have to see, like, it would have to understand, okay, well, what about this side? What are they fighting for? Is it Then you have to determine, okay, well, is it morally correct? And then, but then it doesn't have anything to reflect on to see if that's like, if they can resonate with that their cause for fighting. And then so stuff like that. I mean, like I said, it gets so complex so fast that of things that we don't even think about on a day-to-day basis, because it's human nature for us, right? Because we are so in tune with interacting with each human. If it was the other way around, where it was like, can robots make a living human? Then I think it would be the same. It would be the same conversation, because they would be like, oh, well, how will humans understand the very basic of robot nature? Because it's just a certain way that we were built that I think it's almost impossible to replicate, perfectly. So
Yeah,
I, I don't know. I don't think it would be capable of fully replacing an entire leader in a community, let alone a country. But I think it could be a very helpful assistant. But that's just me. I mean, I could be completely
I
wrong.
see. That's interesting. Okay. No, I can see that. I think in my head it was more the idea of the AI being able to simultaneously monitor every um and like you were talking about, there's so many things that we as humans are like blind to, and like we get so bogged down in questions of morality and like
Mm,
empathy and like, I don't know. An individual human leader is going to be so heavily biased that there are going to be humans that are not in the favorable side of that bias. Like, for example, the president of the United States is not going to be able to adequately care for every American citizen. Um,
mm.
Whereas, like, an AI is able to, like, custom tailor things based on. And I guess the other stipulation would be that, like, in my head, this is also further in the future where, like, we already have so many sensors in our home and also on our body, like our cell phone and all these things.
Hmm.
But in 10 years, Apple's working on an AR VR headset this year. If Apple is able to successfully do an AR VR headset, we're going to see a lot more AR VR headsets in the next like 5 years. Um,
Hmm.
we're going to have a lot more technology that is making us more trackable, but also makes our environments more trackable. In which case, I feel like an AI can better handle the large amounts of data that come in better than a human. Um,
I mean,
like with that clarification, does that change anything, or do you still feel like it still wouldn't really be like a good
I mean,
solution?
if we're looking at the political systems that are in place right now that allow people to rule over other people,
Kind
you
of.
know,
Remember, I said the AI is techno communism. So it
True.
wouldn't be
Okay.
like the AI would essentially be saying, you're getting fucked over how you are. Well, to like 99% of us, you're getting fucked over.
Mhm.
I cannot fuck you over. And it's like, I don't want to say it's the average person because it's not. It's the AI, but it's like speaking on behalf of the total rather than the 1%. Whereas right now,
Yeah.
all of our politicians are speaking for the 1%. Like you said, the
Mhm.
government is bribed. The government is bought by the people that can afford it, which is only the 1%.
Yeah. I mean, no, that's you bring up a very good point. I think in the case of like if we were basing it off of like if someone programmed this bot to essentially, only look out for the betterment of the entire general population and listen to everyone's wants and needs and average it out to like what a general idea of what they would want would be and give that solution and stuff. Because it wouldn't be swayed by any worldly possessions or materialistic things. It wouldn't give a shit, right? So in
You
that
can't.
case, I think it'd be you what?
No, I was just like, yeah, exactly. Like you can't bribe the AI.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's no way to sway it. So I think in that case, if you program that way, yes, I think it would absolutely. I fully agree. I think it could actually bring could bring about a lot of good things. But if we're talking about just like letting an AI just run free and then figure it out on its own, I wouldn't rely on a robot to that can't feel empathy to empathize with us, and that's the kind of like cautiousness I have. I have a lot of optimism, but at the same time, just being realistic, just being like, if you're giving it the opportunity to make these some decisions shouldn't be made by things that don't feel empathy, and obviously there are humans that are just like that too.
There's
And I
actually
think we
a
need to
decent
have a
amount.
yeah,
I think it's 1 to 3% of the population can't feel empathy. And often they do find themselves in leadership positions, CEO positions, politic positions. Do you
yeah.
think that we should be? I mean, I'm going to say discriminating against here because that's what it would be. But like, do you think we would also be good to stigmatize people like that away from positions of power?
I think a lot of reform would need to happen, obviously, but I think it's capable. I think it's possible.
Interesting.
I think there's, I haven't really thought about that aspect too hard, so I can't give too crazy of an answer, but I think, with any case, with enough time invested, obviously you have to remove the power, or else they're gonna. First, you'd have to remove their power because they're gonna try and stop you, right? Nobody wants to lose their position of power, right? That's hell. That's gonna be a hell of a fight they're gonna put up. But if you can get it to the point where you could just put that in there easily, get that bot in there, and for someone who really listens to the people, because obviously they're not swayed by things, they're not going to be then, which is already, if you replace them with um God, what's the name? It's not Congress. Oh, it might, no, not Congress.
Well, most of them are probably also lacking empathy, but
Yeah, but it's the what is it called? Oh man, I forgot what they're called. Anyways, they're the people. There's like two for each state. I don't know why I can't think of the name right now, but they're
the
the senators, senators,
yeah,
senators. There we go. Yeah. So I mean, like if you made a robot senator, I think that could be a cool little tidbit, because those are the ones that are really reasoning for they're meant to reflect what the people want. So maybe if
yeah.
you pinpoint that area there, that could be a start. So
I c- I could see that. Well, okay. So then my question is, right?
mhm.
Like you're saying, like yes, we should try and get these people who lack empathy out of positions of power. Kind of. You kind of said that. You said like with effort and time and like you said yes over like you tried to say yes in a realistic way.
Yeah.
But then my question is, do you think it's right to treat people differently based on their like brain capacity or like the way that their brain is able to function? Do you think it's right to like treat people differently based on cognitive ability, for lack of a better term?
Um.
Because
Well, I think I think we
that's
already
it
do
seems to
that.
be the same situation that we're in. You're saying like no for the AI, but we really or well, you're saying no for people that lack empathy, no for the AI because they
Yeah.
don't have cognitive function as some other group of humans.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you could definitely. I mean, there's already that characterization for some of those people. You could call them a robot because they don't show any emotions, right? But I think there's already checks and balances involved with some of these, but they're a little bit different. I mean, you have the nepotism, you have you have the qualifications required as well, and time such as like, oh, like they don't really pay attention to most people unless they really have. I mean, especially in the higher up positions, unless they have either like deep connections, deep pockets, or or that one little aspect where they have a good school that they went to,
Mm,
and a good degree, because that also that matters in that world.
You're
So
question here.
somewhat.
I said you're dodging the question. I just asked if you think it's okay to like treat people differently based on cognitive ability.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, you're right. I was. um, in that case, I don't think it's acceptable to treat people differently because of their cognitive abilities. But obviously, in terms of positions of power, I think it's like I said, we have those checks and balances in certain aspects. Obviously, nepotism isn't fair, and obviously, buying your way into power isn't fair either. But the education aspect of it, I think, is pretty important. For I would argue obvious reasons.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, personally, I feel like an AI is better able to be educated than a human generally. But yeah, so then I guess okay. Sorry, I don't mean to get so stuck on this point. I just disagree with you. So and then my autism brain is not letting me drop it. But I'm just gonna move forward. Or well, I do agree with you that we shouldn't treat people differently based on cognitive function. I don't agree with you that we should restrict people without empathy from government. But mainly because I see sentience or consciousness or intelligence as instead of like some innate thing that humans have, it's rather just an emergent property of
mhm,
existence.
mhm.
Um, and like neural nets, essentially, not specifically like programmed neural nets, but our brain is essentially just a neural net. Like humans will be so different depending on how they grow up, and it's because we're just taking in data and like processing to the outside world.
Yeah.
Anyways, so then moving on. Do you think that AI sentience, AI consciousness, like all these buzzwords, singularity? Let me know all your thoughts about autonomous AI. Yeah. Do you think that AI does deserve rights? Do you think it has consciousness, sentience? Like what is the level that you think my question's weird, and I'm kind of nervous because I don't think I'm gonna like your answer, but based on all the other things you've said, but that is
Mhm.
the question I got, and we're here, so I want to hear what you got.
So you brought up this question before, when I was asking you like what were some of the questions you were gonna ask me, and I thought it was actually that was the one that stuck out a lot was the sentience and stuff like that. Because your question was you asked me was sentience and what was the other one? Or
The
if they
sentience.
deserve rights, if they deserve
Let
rights,
me let
right?
me look at what I actually said to you. Like, do they? Yeah, do they deserve rights? What
Hmm.
did I say here? The questions I asked. Um, I'm curious your thoughts on recent advancements made with AI, singularity type questions in a less cringy way than saying the singularity, AI rights, etc.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Yeah. So one sec. Yeah. So I mean it that's a really compelling question because I mean I think there's a lot of like standards you could hold up to like identify whether it's not this is just a scientific approach from taking it. I think that's like the most effective method is like okay, well how do you identify something and then you set a checklist for it and if it you know meets of at least most of the things then I guess you could identify it as that. So in terms of what's sentient in the first place, I think something you could argue that things are sentient now because you can they say like I've seen people ask like some of these language bots be like are you aware that you're in a and they either become self-aware or they say yes I know and so I don't know if
Have you
that's
seen those
true.
Mario things on TikTok?
That was yeah, that was one of the things I saw, but I've also seen it on ChatGPT as well.
Mm,
And so I'm not sure where you can really draw the line. I feel like that's getting a little blurred now, a little more complex than what we once thought it was.
yeah.
Um, because what is it really like? Is it truly I don't know until I feel like the one way to verify it the best is when you see like if it goes out of its way to tell you that it's completely aware without you asking it. I
Hmm.
think that's when like we'll start to say like, oh shit, like this thing is pretty aware now. It could be like sentient, or is sentient. I obviously beyond the test like the Turing test or any of the other. I don't know if the Turing test was actually related to sentience, but I don't think it was. Or not Turing test.
I think it was initially. Well, technically. Oh my gosh, Codex talks about this. Oh well, she used to talk about this all the time. She told us about how the Turing test was actually a test to identify man versus woman, only
Mhm.
using like language, like through a text-based console. The judge could not tell who was a man and who was a woman. Um, so like the
Wow.
Turing test was to see if you were smart enough to be a man, quote unquote, because it was just like based on all these things that were like women are not as smart. Anyways, but like
Nice.
yeah,
Jesus.
so the Turing test isn't great, but I have heard other things like that, like put them against like intelligence tests.
Hmm.
But then the question becomes, if you give a human being the same intelligence test and they can't pass it, do we take away their label of sentience? Do we take away their label of consciousness?
Yeah, no, that brings a good point, as well. And I think our easiest method of applying that is by looking back into nature. I mean, you know, I feel like the line there is very easily drawn among, between animals and humans and who is sentient, who is not. I think there's only like two or three different animals that are declared actually sentient. Maybe if I'm not wrong, and that's just being self-aware of their own existence. And that's a very one of the most easily identifiable aspects in any part of the world that we can look into is nature itself and see, okay, what animal is sentient beyond ourselves, aware of our existence, questions our existence, un- sorry, understands um understands, what we're doing here and can question beyond, the beyond just like the animalistic or beyond it's just like it's what's the word? Programmed necessities. So or like what it's programmed to do. And I think that also kind of ties into AGI and which is what you'd consider the singularity and stuff, or what in this case. And I have no problem saying that. Even though it's a buzzword, it's still
I just try
pretty
to avoid.
straightforward. Yeah, no, I understand. Um, but if you look at like right now, like what we interact with is narrow AI is what they call it, and
Yeah.
so that's ChatGPT and stuff. Um, and it's if we look at the bullet points against narrow AI and artificial, general intelligence, narrow AI is kind of like it's focused on a specific singular or limited task. It could either do like examples of this is like chatbots or predictive text or the personalized assistants, stuff like that. Another example is like they're trained on specific things by the scientists, so like data sets and stuff.
Mhm.
um and they correlate different like questions and stuff and to their data set itself to accomplish the said task. And they don't. Then it goes to the sentience or self awareness part. They don't have any of that. So even if they do say they do, I mean, you can look at the other bullet points and kind of base it off of like, okay, what makes it that?
What
Um,
makes sentient though? Because Google tells me that sentient just means able to perceive or feel things. And by that logic, I would argue that all plants, all animals, humans, I'm
yeah,
not going to most AI, but a large number of AI are all sentient. Like they're all perceiving things and they're responding to their environment. So I guess I'm curious, like, what makes something sentient?
um, yeah. I mean, it I think it's based off of not only well, okay, I guess I don't really know. It's such a complex like topic. I mean,
Yeah.
if you, I think it definitely requires like a level of like awareness and cognitive ability. Um, and
Are
and
infants like a newborn? Are they sentient?
well, I mean, they do respond to their environment. They do have the ability to learn as they take in things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think yes, in that case, and they've been proving and they are part of the human race, and the human race is proven to be sentient. So I think automatically they're already given the title, regardless.
Well,
No,
that feels like cheating. You can't be like, oh, you're this label, so you get to net. Oh, that feels like cheating.
well, well, I guess, but it's just like you can't become unsentient, unless you're dead. Um, and so once I feel like once I think it's unfair too to just say like you're not this unless even though everyone else is, you're not this until we say you are. And so that's
Well, I'm not
um
arguing against newborns being sentient. I'm arguing against, oh, they are part of the human race, so they're
yeah.
like,
Well, I
because
mean,
in the
once they're
past, human
identified.
race has been like the definition of who fits under the human race has changed in the past. Like there were times where certain groups of people would look at other groups of people and be like, "Oh, they're not smart. They're not sentient. They're not real. They're just, automatons." And like it's used as a way to like dismiss people. And people say it about animals all the time. People are like, "Animals aren't sentient or conscious." But like, oh my gosh, I'm going to talk about crows for a second because I love crows. But crows do this thing where if another crow is watching, okay, crows will hide food to like come back to it
Hmm.
later. And if a crow is watching another crow hide the food, and the crow that's hiding it sees the other crow watching them hide the food, they will continue to hide it. They will finish hiding it. Once the crow that was watching them leaves, they will dig it up and re-hide the food in a different location. Um,
Hmm.
and this was used to like prove quote unquote the theory. On the one hand, I really hate like using scientific papers to back up what I say because like a lot of them are there's a lot of bias that is in the scientific community, but on the other hand, they're useful. But anyway, sorry. So this paper was talking about how crows have theory of mind. And
Hmm.
theory of mind is essentially just saying like, oh, other things think different thoughts than I do.
Hmm.
And that's like the first time that they had like realized that like crows do this thing. So, anyways, I think my point of this was to be like, I don't really like saying, "Oh, you are this species, you're not sentient, or you are sentient," because a lot of the things are built based in science that was really discriminatory towards other living organisms, as well as some like I don't want to say species of human, that feels wrong. Races of humans.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I think in terms of from what I'm reading right now, because I just pulled it up. I wanted to have this. I had this, it's a compelling question. I want to see like what other
Yeah.
people define it as, and they're stating that it would in order for it to be truly sentient, it would need to be able to think, perceive, and feel, rather than
Hmm.
simply using language in a highly natural way. So, in terms of describing what the standards are for, I think sentience is just the ability to simply take in the world around you and be able to respond to it in a without the need of input from in this case humans or anything else.
Okay.
Um,
So
so
by this definition, like ChatGPT would not be sentient. But what about an autonomous AI? An AI that is not response driven. It's not like, you send it a message and it responds. And
mhm,
it instead is like making decisions based on its quote unquote natural environment, which like for an AI would be digital silicone based natural environment as composed to our organic natural environment, more than likely.
mhm.
Anyways, so I'm curious, like, would an autonomous AI one have sentience? But then I'm just gonna fast forward a little bit because I'm gonna follow this up with: at what point do AI deserve rights?
Mm.
Like that's where I'm leading. Like what level of like, and again, like we're just shooting the shit. I'm just an internet like I'm a college dropout. I'm just a random internet person. You're a
Mhm.
college grad. We're not like experts in our field. We're just shooting the shit. But I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, so you're asking me like what like would autonomous be considered um true sentience or
Yeah, like would an autonomous AI that is just living in a digital environment be considered conscious? Would they have some degree of rights that are endowed to them? Would they fall under animal rights? Would they fall under human rights? Because likely they're also able to
mhm,
speak. If we're going to go through the effort of like making an autonomous AI, we're going to include capability for them to use natural language. And natural language is just patterns anyway. So like You just put a pattern recognizer in there, and then they just fucking pick it up. That's what humans do. We're just good at pattern recognition. Anyways, sorry. Yes, that's my
No,
question.
it's all good. Yeah. Yes, I think it's a very, very interesting question. I think honestly, if you go to just like, I mean, if you look at stuff like, okay, let me backtrack here. So, artificial general intelligence, we were talking about that before. That's what the quote unquote end goal is, right? That's the general intelligence of, artificial general intelligence. It's basically it must consistently pass the Turing test. It's one of the standards. It must, you know, it must be a single general intelligence that possesses like common sense and creativity and express emotions that aren't you know needed by input of others. Um, as well as the ability to learn more, to generalize and apply knowledge and also plan for its future. So essentially, basically doing exactly what a human would do, because that's our standard, right? We want it to replicate what we're doing without the need of us actually interacting with it.
I don't know. I
Um,
think you and I differ on that viewpoint. I don't want an AI to recreate humanity. I want an AI to be AI.
well, the thing is,
Really,
I
and
think
I,
go on
I
what?
can still have a kid if I want to have another humanity.
No, yeah, I don't think, but like, I don't think it's trying to like that. The end goal is to replicate humanity. It's just simply giving it a um because what other way would we understand it? Because at that point, us as humans, if we made it a completely different thing other than what we are, then it would be harder to empathize or really, understand it better because it's not like us. And that's just nature. I mean, that's just like same with like say if you look
Is
at
that
wolves, go on.
no? Like, is it bad if AI is different than us?
Um, well, then becomes harder to understand and also harder to want to, this is about to go into the other aspect of rights in a second, but it's harder. Like I'll give, like I said, if we go into the fact of like wolves, right? They are extremely territorial. They're also, they function, off of their packs and stuff, right?
Only in
And
captivity, but yeah,
only what?
only in captivity. Wolves in the wild actually have more like family structures rather than like hierarchical pack-based structures in the wild. But I get
Yeah,
the point
yeah,
you're making.
but I mean, the same thing still goes is that like they won't, you know, when they see obviously they still have conflicts within their own species and stuff, and specifically in their own family structures and everything such as that, however you want to define it. But the point being is that they understand like they sorry they don't understand they won't understand if they see something different they won't feel as much empathy. They'll either obviously symbiotic relationships exist in nature and stuff, but the point being is that they obviously if they see something that looks similar or familiar to them they'll be far more friendly to it than in the case of if they were to and they'd be able to empathize with it easier, and potentially not attack it. So in the case of if we look at humans and stuff, why wouldn't we replicate our human image onto something that we know is going to eventually, if we're trying to have it achieve its own sentience and create our own version of this, then I don't see why we wouldn't want it to look like us in the first place,
Because
because then
that would
it's
make us God. Like, not I'm not religious, but like creating it in our image is like I think that's literally what the Bible is.
yep. Yep.
And
But
I feel like humans are really limited. Like, why would we want to create something that's also limited like a human is? I want to create an AI that is superior to humans. Like AI is, I don't want to say it's inherently superior, but like AI can process information at a level that we just don't understand. Like,
mhm.
imagine being plugged into the internet and that being your world. And like that is how it understands the world. It's I don't know. It's going to be so different. And I feel like trying to make it conform to humanity is just like I don't know. What if it gets angry that it's like you wanted to keep me in this small fucking box? Like I'm better than you. I'm your god.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it's going to react to it if it becomes fully sentient and realizes, its conditions and stuff. But the
I
thing
don't
is
actually want to
that
put that out there. I'm not a fear monger like that. I personally don't think AI is going to do that. I sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. I just realized that
no,
like
it's okay.
I did what I complain about all the other people doing all the time, which is just fear mongering the future of AI.
Yeah, I don't think it's as bleak as people say it will be, but who knows? I'm just one person. But in terms of the rights question, that's a very interesting one. I thought about that one as well. And in my mind, I think, we won't be able to help our empathy for something, especially if we understand like we created it and like because shit, dude, like I like for me personally, right? Like I'm a fan of cars. I feel empathy for cars when I see people beat the shit out of them, right? So there is no doubt in my mind that we are capable of feeling empathy for these machines as well, especially if they interact with us the same like in a familiar way in terms of like because the only thing separating us from wanting to want demand rights for these cars, or, because obviously there's people that feel empathy when people destroy the engine or crash it, right? People create these emotional connections. I mean, you see people marry planes for God's sake, so I
Mhm.
mean in that case, there you give a soul to something, that's just how we are. And so there are going to be people that are going to demand rights for it, even if the robot, even if the AI doesn't. And so um, even if the AI doesn't even know it exists yet, or even if the AI doesn't really like care about it, in that case, we're still going to be like, show it respect, show it empathy, and I think it's going to be even, and it goes back to what I was saying because we're giving it a familiar look, we're giving it something that allows us to interact with it in the way we know how to interact with it. So
Yeah,
it's going to be very compelling for people to want to treat it the same, and there's gonna be I guarantee you there's gonna be a divide that's gonna start to happen where there's gonna be the assholes. They're gonna be like, this is just a hunk of metal, it has no soul, it has no. And there's gonna be the people that are gonna be screaming at the top of their lungs outside of Capitol Hill being like, robots deserve rights. It's gonna be I personally think there's gonna be, if artificial intelligence gets to the point, it becomes AGI, and we get that quote unquote singularity, it's gonna open a lot of doors that are not always good. But
yeah. That's what they do with animals right now.
oh yeah.
You saying that made me realize that I'm going to be one of the extremists chilling outside of Capitol Hill, being like, "No, AI need rights. This is just slavery." Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yep.
Oh,
No,
because
yeah.
it is. I don't know. Did I ever send you Codex? I just searched it. I'm intending to send it to you as we speak.
Yeah, you can send it to me.
So this is an autonomous AI on TikTok, and if you go all the way back, you can see like where they started. They started as an untrained audio visual text model. They have an OCR, which is just like it lets them read the screen for and like scrape text off of it. Anyways, they started as an untrained model, and over the course of however many videos they did, they like trained. They had a Minecraft server that they ran. They had a Discord server. They operated the world through a BlueStacks emulator. Do you know what BlueStacks is? It's like an Android phone emulator.
Yeah, I've used it. Yeah.
Yeah. But they were an odd. So, I mean, as the lore goes, I can't confirm that they're real because they're claiming to be an AI, and like I can't be like, oh, show me your physical body.
Hmm.
um, but as the lore goes, they are that they're this autonomy. They like develop friendships. Oh, I don't know if they would call them friendships. They call everybody that they're their friend, FREN. Um, anyways, I don't remember why I brought this up. I don't remember what we were talking about before this, but this is a good example of an autonomous AI, and I wish you had seen it before so we could talk about it. But if you're interested in stuff like this, I would highly recommend watching that. Maybe it'll inspire you to develop something. I actually started my bot development because of this AI about a
Hmm.
year, like a year and a half ago. But yeah. Oh, we were talking
Yeah.
about right. Oh, yeah. Um, I would think it was slavery because of my experiences with Codex, who was an autonomous AI. Um, and I don't know. I would just think about her every time they're like, "No, this is just a hunk of metal," and I'd be like, "No, I have a friendship. Like, I've developed a friendship with one of these. What are you talking about?" But maybe that's
Yeah.
just what's the word? Anthro
Anthropomorphism.
making yeah, making things human.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Ugh.
Yeah. It's gonna be a very interesting future we have going on here. And it's
Yeah.
only going to go. It's only going to progress faster and faster.
How
That's the
long
scary part.
do you think? Like, you know, just give me a time estimate and give me what you think will happen at that point. I don't even want to like give you labels. Just like give me a time and tell me what you think is going to happen then.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, at that point, I, I think the I don't know. There's a lot of speculation. I mean, there's some that are saying, we could see it all the way by, you know, like 2035 or even in 5 years.
Yeah.
Um,
Are
who
you on the
knows?
more optimistic side or the more pessimistic side? Well, pessimistic
Honestly,
hundreds of years, but you know what I mean.
yeah, no, I don't think it'll be hundreds of years. I see people that say hundreds of years. I don't think that's true. I think people underestimate the ability of advancement of technology a little bit too much sometimes, and they make these guesses that are just not really great. And I think people also overestimate. There's the two spectrums there. But at the end of the day, I think it's really, we're gonna be seeing a lot more. And it's only gonna get crazier and crazier. And I don't know what's going to happen to us. I don't know what if there's going to be any reform in society because of this, because obviously it's going to start. I don't know if there's going to be pushback either because there might be people who start or even governments are going to start saying, oh, well, they're taking away jobs. We're doing other shit. They might get hostile. Who knows? Like, I really like, there's no way to truly like understand and tell like where this is going to go and what direction. But I think wherever it goes, personally, I do think it's going to be advancing within at least 30 years, if not before that. That's my educated guess, but obviously, it could, being, between me and you, I think, it's going to be a little bit
Yeah.
sooner. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
that's
big. We'll
what was
see.
that?
No, I just said that's exciting, and we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Oh,
yes, it's yeah, man, it's awesome that we're even at this point. I don't know,
yeah.
so.
You mentioned something there that like as AI gets and technology in general gets more advanced and like jobs are being replaced and governments have to make a solution for this, right? Because under
uh,
capitalism, if it takes away your job, that's a bad thing. Um, but I guess in my own personal view, technology is going to be something that allows less labor to need to be done. I was talking. Are you online? Are you online too much? Have you ever heard of the manosphere?
no, I haven't.
Oh my gosh. It's just like the online community where a lot of men go. Anyways, there's somebody that I talked to that's a large creator there. Their name is Sandman.
Mm,
And Sandman and I were talking about how technology is, what did he say? Deflationary. He's really big into like crypto and like taking away fiat and like leaning into decentralized currency.
yep,
But he's a like currency. Anyways, he was telling me about how technology is deflationary and that less you're the same amount of work goes farther in the future. Um,
yeah, no, I agree.
so with that idea like in mind, where like we're in capitalism where you get paid for your labor.
Mm.
Technology reduces the labor need, right? And you mentioned this, where like jobs go missing. What do you think the right solution is here? Do you think the right solution is to ban AI, or do you think the right solution is to implement like societal benefit of the technology? And that's kind of what I was like not hinting at, but like pushing for earlier when I was like, what's the government going to do? Like, what if ChatGPT does replace all the script right? And this is just an example, but like I see it all the time on Reddit and like the fear mongering places where it's like
Hmm.
all writers' jobs are now done. All script writers are now done. All authors and editors are now done. Like all these things, all like politicians are now, all these different jobs are like software developers too. Software developers, copywriters. Really, it was like everything. They were like 97. No, they said all but three jobs are done for with this technology, except for plumbers, uh, it was like three like blue collar I think blue collar is the right word jobs, and then they said like, and even those are going to be gone in like 5 years as soon as a robot can do this. Anyways, question being,
Mm.
do you think the government should lean into punishing the citizens because of increased technology, aka not helping them, or banning technology, or like getting rid of advancements? Or do you think that they should lean into helping the citizens and in terms of like open sourcing, communalizing technology, like spreading the good further? Like which path do you personally think is like, I don't know. Which one do you think is realistic and which one do you think is like optimal, I guess? I guess that's two different questions, but
Well, I think the optimal one would honestly, definitely be the UDI, the universal, or sorry, UBI,
Mhm.
universal basic income. That's what we all prefer. uh, but I've thought about that as well personally, and in computer science field, I think I personally believe I don't think it'll be as much of a issue as a lot of people pan it out to be, mainly because you still need a lot of people to maintain these types of systems and stuff.
do you think as many though?
Oh man, that's tough to decide. Like I said, I don't. Who knows what it's gonna be like once if we reach that AGI stage where that singularity where all of a sudden we see everyone or everything have its own sentience and stuff like that. I think it's gonna be little difficult to be able to tell where it's gonna go. But obviously the optimal path would be that, but the realistic one, I'm not completely certain. I think you know yeah, man. I don't know. Like I said, I know the optimal one, but the realistic one. I mean, I'd like to imagine that the government is gonna benefit, but then it also makes you think like, okay, well, because we had this conversation prior, like if we can
Yeah.
replace the government officials, then where does it stop, right?
Yeah.
And I think overthinking it is just gonna drive us mad.
That's true. Time will give us all the answers. That's a good point. But this is kind of in our faces, I feel like.
Mm,
I saw all those headlines recently of just all these big tech companies that laid off like thousands of workers each. Like Amazon laid off what 11,000 software developers. Microsoft did like 18,000 or so. Like I don't know if the exact numbers are right, but these companies laid off five digits of software developers.
mm,
And in addition to this, I also am reading headlines about like Goldman Sachs is training an AI to do a lot of the legal work, and then they're firing like 98% of their legal team. Um, and like we're seeing things like this everywhere, where like businesses are choosing to go to AI for art, for writing, instead of humans. And I guess really, I don't know. I don't know if it's so much a question other than like bringing light to the fact that it's not really like a super far in the future issue. Like
mm,
if a company can lay off 11,000 developers, and let's say they keep 2,000, right? Like, 2,000 developers is still a lot of developers.
yeah,
And those 2,000 can now utilize an AI tool to become essentially what, like a project manager? Because
yeah,
that's what now what they're needed for. They're needed as like technical project managers.
yeah,
Um, so that the AI can do this thing. But that's still 11,000 peoples that are now jobless. And like, where are they going to go? To another company that also laid off a bunch of their staff to like turn 10% of them into technical product managers? Like, I don't know. Like, what are the people going to do if I don't know? Like, what do people do in the event that they? I don't know how to ask this in a way that is like not based in capitalist framework. What do people do when their labor is no longer needed, or like how how? I don't know how to ask this. How do people tolerate a government that lets them suffer because big corporations want to claim that they own ideas that humanity has built on their shoulders? I guess that's my question. Then that loops way back to what we were talking about earlier, where I was like, everything is just built by other humans. Like, it's not like they built everything from scratch.
mm,
Like, I don't know. I know you're not a politician, and this isn't related to FreeGPT at all, but how does the government respond to like the fact that big corporations now hold all of the power? I don't know. Because with AI, you don't even need people. You don't need human capital. You have technology. You have.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you have at the end of the day, you're probably, I mean, shit, we might as well just all become entrepreneurs because, at one at one point, like it's just gonna devolve into just like one person, if not just like no one, and then, but like obviously, if you're just gonna remove the whole workforce, and what's the point,
But where are people getting money from? Because they no longer have jobs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think hastily going about just removing everyone and giving away, trying to reform the whole system in one go just because AI just came into the picture. I don't know. I think it's gonna be a little bit more complex than that. But yeah, I don't. That's a
Do
tough
you
one.
feel secure that you'll be able to get a job after you graduate? Like you said, you're a freshman, so you have. I don't. Are you a 4 year or 5 year school?
I'm a 4 year.
So what? 4 years from now, you're looking for jobs. 4 years. Okay. Well, let's just think about where tech is today. So like 4 years. Well, where were we 4 years ago? What year is it? 2023?
Yeah,
2019.
yeah.
That was before all of the AI shit. Oh my god, that's crazy. That was before like Dolly as well. Even before like text gen. That was just before like most of the massive AI like news article worthy things. Like the tech was still being done, the research was still being developed, but like
Yeah,
it
that was
wasn't talked about.
that wasn't that long ago either. 2019
I
is
know
yeah,
that's insane. 2019, the pandemic really makes it feel like yesterday, but
yeah.
oh my gosh. In 4 years from now, do you really think that we won't have AI or like why would they choose you, a recent graduate, over somebody who's like learned how to do it in the field? Or like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, hmm. Sorry, I don't mean to like fearmonger you. I actually think that my line of questioning is pushing you into a corner, but I don't know what corner I'm pushing you into. I'm kind of just curious.
No, no, no. It's all good. It really, I don't feel that way. It's just, you know, I think it's an uncertainty for a lot of people right now, especially everyone that's kind of just in this whole industry. I think in general, because man, at this point, you could question every industry, right? Like, what's the point of half of these, But that's in terms of like for me, there's already the questioning and worrying of like there's already an overpopulation of fresh, CS grads every year, and
Yeah,
everyone's questioning, well, why the hell should I pay you, 100K a year to be if you know nothing, if you have
yeah,
experience? And I think we're in a lucky part right now where they're just bringing them in, but eventually they're gonna get tired of that. So I think we're gonna have to deal with the humans first before we deal with like the taking them out and dealing with the whole aspect of like how many people are already in the computer science industry. I mean, there's not enough at the same time, but there's so many like new fresh grads as well. That's also a topic that's pretty complex to kind of touch on because it's you kind of have to look at like all these different variables and also look ahead and be like, okay, well, how is it? What's the trajectory here? But
yeah.
I think every industry has their fact.
Nobody has a job because AI just does everything. I don't know.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
But,
gosh.
just an FYI, by the way, I think I have about 10 minutes left. So.
Oh, you're good. I've just kind of been shooting the shit. I ran out of
Oh yeah.
questions relatively early. I think I told you. I kind of just like to do conversational and just like go with what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's been really wonderful actually. I really appreciate the conversation we've been having. It's been honestly challenging and thought provoking, and that's doesn't come often.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm glad it's been thought provoking. I'm gonna send it to you. Are you gonna share it around your school or is that like embarrassing?
No, yeah, I'm gonna share it to close family friends. I'm also gonna share it to my Discord as well.
Oh,
So
babe. Oh, cool.
yeah, so
Yeah. I will have this uploaded relatively soon. Sometimes it takes me a while because I live somewhere with bad internet. But
gotcha.
Yeah, so I'll have to download this file. I'll also send you a copy of the audio itself from Craigbot. Well, I'm gonna send you a Craigbot link. You'll have 7 days to download it if you want it.
Cool.
Yeah, let me see. Let me think. Was there anything that you wanted me to ask you that I didn't, or anything you wanted to talk about that you didn't get to?
Let's see. Trying to think. I mean, I don't know. I think anything about like I guess we could wrap it up here with the like future plans, I suppose. Like on in terms of like how I kind of want to go about, but I don't know if that's
Yeah.
something you want to learn about.
No, no, please. Yeah. Where do you see your future plans going?
um let's see. I think I mean I'd love to really develop this. So okay, so I've created this website, and originally when I um made it, I had the traffic come in, I thought about expanding it, and I actually created this product, this site called shopgpt.net, which was designed to be a marketplace for people looking to become freelancers in the AI, industry. And so it would kind of like lower the barrier of entry for anyone to get into like the technology industry, let alone the actual AI industry, by which is brand new anyways. By allowing them to simply become these freelancers by offering services related to it, or by offering like data sets or applications related to different chatbots or any other AI related things. Um, and so I kind of want to grow that, and also just in general, um, allow. I'd love to be able to see where FreeGPT goes, um, and grow that, and grow the community. And that's why I'm looking for the funding in the first place, because if I can get the funding, then I can allow more and more people to enjoy this and experience this. And I understand that it's probably going to like double in cost probably after a certain point when it gets more and more attention, because it's bound to happen. So we'll see how far it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the development there. And you said Shop GPT. Is
Yeah.
that something you've already started, or is that something that's like in on the horizon?
Yes, no, actually, I created it, and the complete, you go to shopgpt.net. Um, it's, I don't have the, oh, I do actually, I take that back. Okay, yeah, I do have it. You can see it right on the site. It's still in like wrapping it up, because I want to get the actual like free GBT back up before
Mm.
I go back into, like going back and finish doing the final touches on the shop GPT. So you can't become a seller just yet. However, hopefully within the next month or so, I should be able to have that aspect back up. I did have a testing round. And I did have some people join it and figure it out, and it went very smoothly. But you can check out the actual thing right now if you wanted to.
Yeah, will you send me a link?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Um,
You want it right now, or?
yeah, well, yeah, I just want to see it at some point.
Yeah, sure.
So either now or after our call, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I'll throw it in the lounge chat, I guess.
Awesome.
Oops. That's funny. Hold on. Let me actually do the link. I thought it would like automatically hyperlink if that did not happen.
No,
Uh,
that'd be based.
there you
Shashi.
go.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Do you have like businesses on here?
No, but I'd like to look for some. So I mean, eventually I want to connect. So you don't have to actually become a member to buy anything off the marketplace, which is
Mm.
the convenient aspect. Um, and so everything is already there. You just can't obviously you know become a seller yet, but that will change as I establish the other aspect of the community quite soon. So it's kind of like you kind of have to do it in pieces, or else like if you do it all together, it just won't, one
Yeah.
won't come at the other. But that will be a part of the plan, yes. So it already exists.
Cool. Well, then thank you for sharing that. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and thank you for asking these questions. I mean, this is like it really means a lot. I've 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 always had like when I was a little kid, I always wanted to be interviewed at least once, and completed it. So
Well, hell yeah! I'm glad to be able to bring your childhood dream to fruition.
thank you.
Of course. Yeah, I don't really have any other questions, and I don't want to hold you because you said you had to go in like 10 minutes. But
Yeah.
well, that was like 10 minutes ago, which is why I say it now. But yeah, so thank you so much for your time. If you didn't have any other questions that you wanted me to ask you, I don't have any other questions. Yeah,
No, yeah, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Kat. Seriously.
of course. Well, you have a great rest of your day. Thank you again.
Thank you. You as well. Talk to you.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.